You wake up, you check your phone, you feel that small, familiar wave of guilt before your feet even touch the floor. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you already know what today should look like. The workout you keep postponing, the business you keep planning but never launching. The version of you that you keep promising yourself you'll become, next week, next month, next year, and somewhere in the back of your mind, you also already know the truth. You are not waiting for the right time. You are waiting to feel ready, and you have been waiting for a very long time. Here's the question nobody wants to ask out loud. What if the feeling you're waiting for was never going to arrive? What if motivation, the thing you've built your entire plan for change around, was never actually the mechanism that changes a life? You've been told that if you just find the right video, the right quote, the right morning routine, something will finally click. The switch will flip. And for a few hours or a few days, it does feel like it clicked. You wake up early. You say no to the extra hour of scrolling. You feel powerful. Then day 4 arrives, and the feeling is gone, and so is your effort. This isn't a discipline problem. Not really. It's a misunderstanding, one that almost everyone carries, and one that quietly keeps people stuck in the exact same place, year after year, resolution after resolution. In the next few minutes, you're going to see exactly why motivation was never built to carry you, and what actually does. Not a hack, not a hype trick, something far more durable and far more within your control than you've been led to believe. Because the life you want isn't on the other side of a feeling. It's on the other side of a decision you haven't made yet. Let's talk about why you keep starting over. It usually goes the same way. Something happens, a birthday, a bad photo, a hard conversation, a moment of clarity at 2 a.m., and suddenly you're fired up. You make the plan. You buy the notebook, the gym membership, the course. For a few days, you are unstoppable. Then real life shows up. Work gets stressful. You sleep badly. Someone cancels on you and you're irritated. The feeling that powered you in the beginning quietly leaves the room, and without noticing, you leave with it. You tell yourself you'll restart Monday, then the Monday after that. Then, eventually, you stop telling yourself anything at all, because some part of you has started to believe the story that you are simply not someone who follows through. That belief is the real damage. Not the missed workout, not the unfinished project. The belief that gets quietly written into your identity every time you rely on a feeling that doesn't show up. Here is what almost nobody explains to you. Motivation is not a personality trait. It is a chemical, temporary state. It spikes when something is new, urgent, or emotionally charged, and it fades, reliably, predictably, as soon as the task becomes repetitive or uncomfortable. It was never designed to sustain a life change that takes months. It was designed to get you moving for a moment, nothing more. So when you build your entire plan for transformation on top of a feeling that has a built-in expiration date, you are not failing because you lack willpower. You are failing because you built a house on sand and then blamed yourself when it collapsed. Notice how this shows up in other places too. The overwhelmed feeling that hits you when your to-do list is too long, so you end up doing none of it, scrolling instead, because scrolling requires no motivation at all. The distraction that pulls you toward the easy, low-stakes task instead of the important, uncomfortable one, because the easy task still gives you a small hit of progress without requiring any real discomfort. The way you can feel completely unconfident walking into a room, yet somehow find the energy to perform confidence for 2 hours at a party, proof that the feeling was never really the barrier. The decision to act despite it was always available. These aren't separate problems. They're the same pattern wearing different clothes. Every one of them is a moment where you're letting an internal weather system, mood, energy, confidence, decide what you do, instead of deciding it yourself and letting the feeling catch up later, if it ever does. Think about the areas of your life where you're already consistent: brushing your teeth, showing up to a job you don't love, checking your phone the second it buzzes. You don't feel especially motivated to do any of those things. You just do them because they've become who you are, not what you occasionally feel like doing. That's the piece missing from the plan you've been running. You've been trying to feel your way into a new identity, but identity isn't built by feeling. It's built by repetition, by the version of you that shows up on the boring days, the tired days, the days with zero motivation in sight. Until you understand that, you will keep mistaking a lack of motivation for a lack of character. Persuasion boils down to just 2 key actions, and you will keep starting over convinced the problem is you when the problem was actually the entire model. Here's the truth that's uncomfortable but necessary. Nobody is coming to make this easier for you. There is no future version of Monday where you suddenly feel different. There is no course, no speech, no video, including this one, that installs permanent motivation into you. If you're waiting for a feeling to arrive and carry you across the next 6 months, you will be waiting for the rest of your life, and you will call that waiting not being ready yet. You are not unready. You are unwilling to act without the comfort of feeling like it. And that is a very different problem, because it means the solution was never outside of you. Consider this. Every single day, you are casting a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. Not with your intentions, not with your plans. With your actions, the actual observable things you do when nobody's watching and nothing is forcing you. Skip the workout because you're tired, and you cast a vote for someone whose effort depends on their mood. Do it anyway, even badly, even for 10 minutes, and you cast a vote for someone whose standards don't bend to how they feel. Neither vote defines you permanently, but enough votes in the same direction, and you become the majority you kept voting for. This is what most people get backwards. They think they need to become disciplined first, and then they'll be able to act with consistency. But it works the other way. You become disciplined by acting like a disciplined person before you feel like one. The feeling arrives after the identity, not before it. There's another truth hiding underneath this one, and it stings a little more. Your current environment, your current habits, your current standards, you built those. Maybe not on purpose, maybe not all at once, but they didn't happen to you. They accumulated, one small choice at a time, until they became your baseline. Which means the opposite is also true. A different baseline can also be built. One small choice at a time. Comfort became a habit. Discomfort can become one too. Neither is who you fundamentally are. Both are simply what you've practiced. There's a reason this truth is uncomfortable rather than motivating in the traditional sense. It removes your excuses at the same moment it hands you your power back. You can no longer say the plan failed because you're simply not a disciplined type of person. But you also no longer have to wait for some external circumstance to change before you can start. The responsibility is heavier. The freedom is bigger. Both are true at once. That's not a punishment. That's the most liberating fact in this entire video, if you let it land. You are not stuck because of who you are. You are stuck because of what you've been practicing. And practice can change. Picture someone, we'll call him Daniel, a composite of a story you've probably lived some version of yourself. Daniel spent years telling people he was about to change his life, about to start training, about to leave the job that was draining him, about to fix his finances. Every January he had a new plan. Every March the plan was gone, replaced by a quiet, familiar disappointment he'd learned to swallow without mentioning. What made this year different wasn't a bigger goal or a better plan. It was a single, unremarkable Tuesday. He hadn't slept well. He didn't feel like doing anything. And instead of waiting for the feeling to change, he did the smallest version of the thing he'd been avoiding. He put on his shoes and walked for 10 minutes. No motivation, no fanfare, just a decision, executed badly, on a day that offered him every excuse to skip it. The next day, he didn't feel transformed either. He just did it again. Smaller than he wanted, slower than he wanted, but again. Somewhere around week 3, something shifted. Not in his energy, but in his self-image. He caught himself thinking, I'm someone who shows up, even on the bad days. Not because he'd convinced himself with a slogan, but because he had evidence. Real, repeated, boring evidence. By the time real motivation occasionally did show up, a good night's sleep, a small win, a compliment from a friend, it wasn't the engine anymore. It was a bonus, The engine had become identity, built from 100 unremarkable Tuesdays, where he chose the decision over the feeling. Daniel's story isn't dramatic. There's no single cinematic turning point, no speech that fixed him overnight. And that's exactly the point. Real transformation rarely announces itself. It accumulates quietly, in the moments nobody is filming, until one day you look back and realize you've become someone your old self wouldn't recognize. What's easy to miss in a story like Daniel's is how little the outside world actually changed in those first few weeks. His job was the same. His schedule was still full. Nothing external gave him permission to succeed this time. The only thing that changed was the internal question he answered differently, over and over, on days that gave him every reason to answer it the old way. If you're waiting for your version of a dramatic turning point before you start, you may be waiting for a scene that was never going to come. Your turning point is available to you today, in a form far less exciting than you imagined, and far more effective. This is the shift that changes everything, and it's simpler than you expect. Stop asking, how do I get motivated? Start asking, what would the person I want to become do right now, regardless of how I feel? That one question rewires the entire approach. It moves the decision out of your emotions, where it's unreliable, and into your identity, where it's something you can choose on purpose. From I can't to I haven't learned this yet. Notice the difference. I can't is a closed door. I haven't learned this yet is a door with a handle on it, uncomfortable but open. From I am stuck to I can make one decision right now. You cannot fix your entire life in this moment. You can decide the next 10 minutes. Stuck is a story about your whole life. A decision is something you can actually hold in your hands today. From I need to feel ready to readiness is something I build by acting, not something I wait to receive. Nobody feels fully ready before doing something difficult for the first time. Readiness is mostly manufactured in motion, not granted in stillness. And this is the one that reshapes everything else, from I need motivation to I need standards. Motivation asks, do I feel like it today? Standards ask, is this who I am, regardless of today? A person with standards doesn't renegotiate their effort every morning based on their mood. They already decided who they are. The daily action is just confirmation, not negotiation. This shift also changes how you relate to setbacks. When you were relying on motivation, a bad day felt like proof the whole plan was broken, because the feeling that powered everything had disappeared, so the entire structure seemed to collapse with it. When you're relying on identity and standards, a bad day is just a bad day. You don't need to feel good to act like the person you've decided to become. You just need to act. This is also why willpower alone burns people out. Willpower is exhausting because it fights your current feelings every single time. Identity doesn't fight your feelings, it simply doesn't ask them for permission. You're not forcing yourself to become disciplined through sheer force every day. You're becoming someone for whom the action is no longer up for debate. This also changes what a setback means. Missing a day used to feel like the whole thing was ruined, like the streak, and with it your motivation, had been the entire structure, and now it was gone. But if the structure was never the feeling to begin with, a missed day is just a missed day. It doesn't erase the identity you've been building. It's simply the next opportunity to cast another vote, starting again without the dramatic self-punishment that usually follows a slip. That's the shift. Not more hype, not more willpower, a different question, asked at the moment that matters. Not how do I feel, but who am I choosing to be, right now, with this exact action? Understanding the shift is not enough on its own. You need a way to apply it. Here is a simple framework. 5 principles you can start using immediately in the next 24 hours. The first principle is the minimum viable action. Most people fail because their standard for a real effort is too high on the days they have the least capacity. If the only version of the workout that counts is 60 minutes, you'll skip it entirely on a low-energy day. Instead, define the smallest version of the action that still counts as keeping your word to yourself. 10 minutes, 1 page, 5 minutes of focused work. People get this wrong by treating the small version as not real progress. What to do instead? Treat consistency, not intensity, as the actual goal in the early stages. A real-life example: someone trying to build a reading habit fails repeatedly aiming for a chapter a night, then succeeds the moment they lower the bar to 1 page a night, because 1 page is always achievable, and achievable things get repeated. The second principle is removing the decision. Willpower is a limited resource, especially later in the day, so the fewer decisions you need to make in the moment, the more likely the action happens. People get this wrong by relying on in-the-moment motivation to decide whether today is a workout day. What to do instead? Decide in advance, the night before or the week before, and remove the choice from the moment you're most likely to talk yourself out of it. A real-life example: laying out gym clothes the night before removes one entire layer of resistance, because the decision was already made by a version of you that wasn't tired yet. The third principle is environment over effort. Your surroundings are quietly voting for or against the person you're trying to become, all day, without asking your permission. People get this wrong by trying to out-willpower a bad environment, keeping tempting distractions in reach and trusting themselves to resist. What to do instead? Change what's easy and what's hard around you, so the disciplined choice requires less effort than the undisciplined one. A real-life example: someone struggling to stop checking their phone at night finally succeeds not through more willpower, but by charging the phone in another room, making the undisciplined choice slightly less convenient than the disciplined one. The fourth principle is proof over pep talks. Confidence doesn't come from convincing yourself with words. It comes from evidence you've collected through action. People get this wrong by trying to talk themselves into feeling confident before they've done anything to earn it. What to do instead? Keep a visible, simple record of the days you followed through. A habit tracker, a checklist, a note. Let the evidence build your identity instead of your internal monologue. A real-life example: someone who doubted they were a disciplined person stopped doubting it not because they repeated an affirmation, but because they looked at 30 checked boxes in a row and the evidence spoke louder than the doubt. The fifth principle is the identity anchor. Before you act, silently name who you're choosing to be in that moment. Not what you're doing, but who you're being. People get this wrong by focusing only on the outcome, which is distant and abstract, instead of the identity, which is immediate and nameable. What to do instead? Before the action, say to yourself, "This is what a disciplined person does," and then do the smallest version of the action. A real-life example: someone about to skip a workout reframes it internally not as exercising, but as being the kind of person who keeps commitments to themselves. And that single reframe is often enough to get them moving. Notice something these 5 principles have in common. Not one of them asks you to feel differently before you act. Every single one works with your current mood exactly as it is today. Tired, doubtful, distracted, whatever it happens to be, because none of them depend on that mood cooperating. That's what makes this framework different from a burst of inspiration. Inspiration asks you to feel your way into action. This asks you to structure your way into it, so the action happens whether the feeling shows up or not. And ironically, that's usually when the feeling finally arrives, after the action, as a reward for showing up, rather than as a precondition for it. 5 principles. None of them require motivation. All of them require a decision, one you're capable of making today, in whatever mood you happen to be in. Now let's be honest about what's actually at stake here, because this isn't really about one workout or one habit. Every day you keep outsourcing your effort to your mood, you're not just missing a single action, you're reinforcing an identity. The identity of someone whose life is decided by how they happen to feel that morning. And that identity doesn't stay contained to fitness or productivity. It quietly spreads into your relationships, your career, your confidence, the way you show up for the people who depend on you. Picture the version of your life 5 years from now if nothing changes. If you keep waiting for motivation the way you have been. Same starts, same stalls, same quiet disappointment, just older. The goals get smaller, not because you want less, but because you've learned, painfully, not to expect follow-through from yourself. Now picture the other version. Not a fantasy, a plausible future built from the small, unglamorous decisions available to you starting today. A version of you whose word to yourself actually means something because you've spent months proving it in ordinary, unremarkable moments nobody else witnessed. A version of you who doesn't need to feel brave to act brave because acting has become the identity, not the exception. The gap between those two futures isn't talent, luck, or circumstance. It's a string of small decisions, repeated on days that don't feel special, that most people never make because they're waiting for a feeling that isn't coming. Think about what this identity does beyond the gym or the goal you first had in mind. The person who keeps commitments to themselves on ordinary days is also the person who follows through on the hard conversation they've been avoiding, who finishes the project instead of abandoning it when it stops being fun, who shows up for the people they love even on the days it would be easier not to. Discipline built in one area has a way of quietly reshaping every other area, because it isn't really about the workout or the habit. It's about becoming someone whose actions and intentions finally match. This is the part people skip past too quickly. Your future self is not a different person who magically arrives. Your future self is being built, right now, by whether you treat today's ordinary moment as one more vote for the old identity or one more vote for the new one. There is no dramatic finish line where it all suddenly counts. It's counting right now. So here's where this leaves you. You didn't need another speech to feel something for 20 minutes and then forget it by tomorrow. You needed to see, clearly, why the plan you've been running was built on a feeling that was never designed to last, and what to build instead. Motivation was never going to carry you. Identity will, standards will, the decision you make in the next 10 minutes, independent of how you feel, will. You don't need to fix your whole life today. You don't need the dramatic turning point, the perfect plan, or the surge of energy you've been waiting for. You need one small, honest action that proves, to yourself, not to anyone else, that your word means something. Think back to where this started. The guilt before your feet even touch the floor. The plan you've restarted more times than you'd like to admit. None of that was evidence that you're incapable of change. It was evidence that you were using the wrong fuel. Wrong fuel, same engine. The engine was always capable. It just needed something more reliable than a feeling to run on. That's it. That's the whole shift. Not more hype, not more pressure. One decision, repeated, until it becomes who you are. The version of you that you keep promising yourself you'll become is not waiting somewhere in the future for the right feeling to unlock it. It's waiting on the other side of the next small decision, the one you're free to make in the next few minutes, regardless of how ready you feel. You've been waiting. Waiting for the right moment, waiting to feel ready, waiting for the tiredness to lift, for the doubt to quiet down, for some invisible signal that says now. But the signal was never coming. It was never going to come because it was never real in the first place. Here's what's real. The next 10 minutes. The next small, unremarkable action that nobody will applaud and no one will notice. Except the version of you that's been waiting for someone to finally stop waiting. You don't have to feel ready. You just have to move like the person you've decided to become. One ordinary decision at a time, starting with this one. Close this video. Do the smallest version of the thing you've been postponing, not because you feel like it, because you decided, and that decision is the only thing that was ever going to change anything. What is one thing you've been putting off that you know, deep down, you need to change? Say it in the comments. Naming it is the first vote.